what's standing out to you about this situation? Like it's obviously there's a lot of similarities to previous school shootings and there's a lot of differences. What do you think we should take away from this one? How should we be thinking through it?
Well, I think, again, we have another example of retreating to narratives almost immediately. The gun control advocates retreated to that. Those who, again, have been infected by a critical theory mood, something we've talked about before, where there are predetermined good guys and bad guys, have retreated pretty quickly to trying to portray the school and Christians and her parents as being intolerant and the cause behind her radicalization. And then, of course, there was apologies for misgendering a person who had gone in and shot and killed 3 elementary school children and 3 school workers, which is just something, if you change the details so that this person identified in any other way as a white nationalist or as a some sort of racially motivated or just somebody infected too much by violent video games or whatever else, that would have never happened. And it just underscores the power that this movement has had over our imaginations. Not just the critical theory mood where we see people in terms of who they belong to and give them moral, culpability or moral superiority based on that, but also just the sexual orientation and gender identity movement, and the gender identity movement now even hijacking the sexual orientation movement. This woman also identified as being a lesbian first, and then had gone on and identified, at least as you said, online. And, of course, a headline that's screaming out over and over through this, at least from what has been reported from a friend, that this woman called before going on this rampage, her parents, and her parents' concern is that there was significant mental illness and she had significant problems. And again, gender identity issues are almost always accompanied by other mental health issues. The comorbidities, so to speak, are just unbelievable. And yet those are being completely, by and large, at least being kind of played down. And what we see are headlines from individuals and media outlets and others basically saying, oh, they're a very religious family, and, she attended school there and they didn't accept, who she really was or whatever else. Of course, none of this explains why this former student went back to a place where she went to elementary school. That is another level of violence and evil. It's if you even kind of philosophically categorize evil, which is a tough thing to do because it's not on the number of people injured or because every person is infinitely valuable, and it's not even just how horrific it is all the time. But you have moral evil, which is the kind of evil that we saw at this shooting where someone actually inflicts evil on somebody else, and natural evil, which is evil that we sense as evil, but is only evil if there's a way that the world should be, a hurricane, a natural disaster, something where there's not human culpability, but we still sense that it was wrong because it unjustly hurt somebody or took somebody's life or something like that. But then there's maximum evil. That's a category that I owe a former Bible professor of mine, Gary Phillips, trying to put your mind around when it involves when evil involves, in particular, children, because there's a sense of innocence. There's a sense of look, don't put them in the middle of our conflict, right? I mean, we may have a disagreement here, or we may have a culture war over there, but they should never be in the crossfire like this. The other thing, of course, that is emerging is that this was also a week, or at least on social media, which has been, of course, the greatest driver of this disassociation with reality that the world has ever seen, has been the greatest source of confusion for young people, particularly young girls, that the world has ever seen. Nothing else can come close to the what social media has done to us. And not by itself. I mean, it's carrying a whole bunch of really, really bad ideas, but nothing has kind of washed over a culture like social media has. We had this conversation a few weeks ago in our editorial meeting, and there's some concern. I get it, because I was never a teetotaler on we just need to say no to everything that kind of can have a moral a dimension that's wrong. It kind of brings back memories of various forms of legalism where you should never go to a movie theater, you should never listen to anything other than Christian music, and then you got to figure out what Christian music is, and you can't listen to rock music, but then there's Christian rock music, and everything gets super confusing.
Remember those pamphlets you found that one time at that store? I think you said it was like in North Carolina or something, and it was those really old pamphlets that were like, here's why rock music will send you to hell.
Oh, yeah. No, yeah. I mean, listen, I can't believe you remember that. I remember, I'm trying to remember the name of the town where we were in. It's a little town in North Carolina. But, I get it, because the idea was that there was bad stuff in there and you stay away. And I'm always allergic to that, but I am ready 100% to say, unplug your kid from social media yesterday. So here you have this great force of evil, and according to social media, someday this week was supposed to be a trans day of vengeance, and you have a staffer, press secretary from an Arizona progressive politician who basically posted. Did you see that? There was a post of somebody saying when someone's transphobic, and it had a woman with 2 guns. And this was posted after the shooting. It was unbelievable. So there is a reason that many people are wondering if we're on the precipice of violence. And look, when you're disassociated from reality, there's a particular vulnerability. And I'm not saying no one else is vulnerable to kind of violent mental illness. I mean, the other thing that made this really unusual was that it was a woman.
Yeah. Now,
it was a woman hoping to be a man, but mass shootings just don't. I mean, listen, the only commonality, the only trend you can point to that almost is 100% in mass shootings is that it's committed by a male. Mm-hmm. And that's what made this one really unusual. Unless, she was somehow thinking this would make her more masculine. I don't know. We don't know. We don't have the manifesto. Yeah. It's important that we get this manifesto. There's a manifesto that this woman wrote. It's very important that we know what was going through her mind.